NHS England data from last year shows 19.5 million patients at A&E, or 79%, made their own way there. Some of those patients were actually in need of immediate or very urgent medical attention. Let's just have a look why the latest average times for ambulances are so high. Here we go. Average category 1 call is 8 minutes waiting time. 1 in 10 waits is more than 14 minutes. Category 1 is the highest risk. So these are people with life-threatening injuries. Imagine your big trauma, car crashes, that sort of things. Now, the target for that is 7 minutes, and it hasn't reached that 7 minutes point for 4 years now. Then we get to category 2 calls. And if you think that was life-threatening, well, I'm not quite sure what heart attack and stroke is, because I'd call them life-threatening as well. Those average 29 minutes and 28 minutes and 40 seconds, in fact. And finally, category 3 calls, severe pain, well, that average is 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's in fact underneath that. That's within the 2-hour target. So there we can see some of the reasons why people might choose to make their own way. Would you call an ambulance? If not, why not? Do you have a story where you've given up waiting and taken things into your own hands? And how did that work out for you? 0207 862 2222. That's the number. Give us a ring. Joanna, did you have to make that choice ever between calling for an ambulance and deciding to get there under your own steam?
Well, interestingly enough, I broke my back last year, and I managed to, don't ask me how, I drove myself back from where I'd broken it in acute agony, got home, and then sort of was manhandled out of the car, and then my husband ended up taking me to A&E. And for us, it made sense. It was 20 minutes down the road. I was in acute pain, probably should not have been moved. In reality, we should have left me where I was and got an ambulance out. But I just kept on going. But the reality is, I've seen with my mother-in-law when she was really ill and really, really ill, you'd call for an ambulance and it would be hours in the coming. And every time we've taken it upon ourselves to just get in the car and take somebody straight to A&E.
But you had, I mean, a spinal injury there. That's something where all the advice I've ever heard about spinal injuries is do not touch them, don't move them at all.
Yeah.
And you made that decision because why? Because the pain was so great, or because you just thought the ambulance would take too long?
I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I thought I'd just hurt myself. I came off a horse. I was an amateur jockey riding up the gallops, and I came off, and my entire body's been broken through horses, but I just thought, oh, I'll be fine. And it was only really a little bit later, and afterwards when we reviewed it, we said, should not have moved. I should have just been where I was. And in that circumstance, absolutely call for an ambulance, simply because, and probably where we were, they'd have sent an air ambulance, because that could have been an acute spinal injury. And actually, when we got to A&E, they rushed me straight through.
Okay, so a little bit of stiff upper lip and a little bit of concern about how long it might take you, or the means for getting you there.
I think so, yes. And I think for me, it is when it is something acute, do not hesitate, call for that ambulance. Do not put your life or somebody else's life at risk. Get on the phone and call an ambulance. If you have the means, go by car. Okay,
we'll hear from JJ after the break. Have you given up on calling for an ambulance? This is after new figures show record numbers of patients now make their own way to A&E instead of waiting for an ambulance. JJ, the less we use it, the less it's going to be available to us, isn't it? If we don't make that call, then they say, well, it's not needed, we can reduce numbers.
Well, I guess so, but it could go the other way. The less we use it, the better it is for people who actually genuinely need an ambulance. If you've broken your arm, you don't need to get an ambulance. Unfortunately, you might be in pain, but you should get the bus, call a taxi. 30 years ago, when a pregnant woman's water would break, they would call an ambulance. That doesn't exist anymore. If you're a pregnant woman's about to give birth, she's just taken to hospital. She doesn't get an ambulance. I think it was this time last year, we were seeing the records being said that people having to call fire engines to take them to hospitals now, because ambulances, there weren't enough ambulances. When ambulances did get to hospital, they were being stuck outside in queues for hours, and then they can't get out, so people having to call fire engines. If we use the service properly for what it's supposed to be, for actual serious emergencies, then there's no reason why there should be. I mean, I don't think 8 minutes is actually that
Is that
bad.
true? I mean, isn't it a reflection of what's happening in A&E as well? That actually what's happening is our ambulances are waiting outside A&E to get someone that desperately needs care admitted. There's huge wait times there. The handover time is much longer as well. And as a result, they are tied up when they should be in our communities, ready to go to respond to an urgent need.
If you go to A&E with a serious head injury, you are not waiting for 10 hours to be seen. You'll be seen straight away.
Yeah.
If you go to A&E saying, I've broken my leg, yes, you will have to wait because they want to help the people who are in the more serious need. So I think the problem we have is people using the ambulance service when they don't actually need to use it.
The other thing I'm going to push back on here is that if the ambulance attends when a woman's waters break for pregnancy, you don't know whether that is going to be a pregnancy that has complications, where it will need that care. It would be great if we could all get that service when we need it, right? I mean, because in your case, it turned out to be much more serious, Joanna.
Yeah, I think it's all about judgment here, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I mean, that time I got to A&E, it was full of people in A&E with regular issues. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the fundamental problem here. We have the backup of the ambulances trying to get in A&E because people are using A&E like you'd use a doctor's surgery. And that whole way of using the NHS has got to change. And we've got to realise that A&E is emergency.
As long as that doesn't then cross the line so that people who really need it feel that they shouldn't have it. You know, they're not entitled to it because they might be wasting somebody's time. Let's take some calls anyway. Angela is in London. Angela, do you feel that you can't call for an ambulance now? Have you experienced something yourself?
Hi there, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, unfortunately we did. We had ambulances several times and just gave up and carried on. But what's happened is that we waited 2 hours for an ambulance for my mum, who later finished up. She was in pain, never cried, she was in agony. We knew it was a bowel problem. She was on palliative care. In the end, we just get the car and drive her. And I drove like a lunatic, gets to the hospital, gets into an entrance that was ambulances only, but I didn't care. And when we got in there, my mum collapsed again, and the doctor passing was willing to deal with her when they were trying to send me to the front desk. We waited over 2 hours for a dying lady. And when we get there, the ambulances are all queuing up waiting there. And to be honest, not their fault, but I would have said 80% of them shouldn't have been there. And because the ambulance drivers are not allowed to leave you until you're handed over, which I think is a problem, because then they could be free. But is it then that then we'll have treble the amount of people waiting? So is that why they don't leave?
Angela,
but when you've got someone dying, you need, and unfortunately, Mum passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And do you think that time, that 2 hours, made all the difference in her case? That if it hadn't been for that, if someone had been there within minutes, she'd still be with us?
I don't know, to be honest. It's a 50-50 because she was very poorly. But I think I wouldn't have had her crying and dying in 2 hours. She would have had pain relief. She would have had been more comfort because eventually she drifted off. It's seeing someone you love in agony unnecessary.
And then when you arrive, seeing those ambulances all tied up, waiting to hand people, those are ambulances that could have been with you, providing her that care and the comfort that she needed.
Absolutely, absolutely. But they were not allowed to free her, to free their patients and go off.
Listen, Angela,
and half of them didn't even need an ambulance because obviously we're there, we can see what's going on. And they didn't need an ambulance.
Yeah. Listen, Angela, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That sounds like a really upsetting episode, a really upsetting way to say goodbye to your mum as well. I'm so sorry. Let's take another call. David is in Manchester. Would you hold back? Would you be resistant to calling out an ambulance these days, David?
Well, I went the last time I went to hospital. I was advised to go to hospital from 101 and they told me there was a 14-minute wait for an ambulance. I had head pains, so I decided to get a taxi, and fortunately the taxi driver let me in, because I was quite worried that the taxi driver, if he saw me, he might have not refused to take me, but he didn't, frankly. And I managed to walk in through the door to the reception, you know?
I mean, what David's talking about there, guys, is somebody who's in extreme pain making the decision to get behind the wheel of a car because they haven't got another option. Similarly, as we heard there, a relative who is in a terrible state, driving as quickly as they can. These are not the situations we want. We want professionals driving at speed with the lights going.
Driving in distress with your mother next to you in absolute pain is, that it increases the risk of having an accident. And the other thing I was just thinking about, Matt, was if you've got a young family and one of you is ill, you can't leave that family. You have got to be in a position to be able to call an ambulance. So if anybody is in that position, you don't even think about leaving your children alone. You call for an ambulance. But we need to step up those times to make sure ill and seriously ill people are responded to as quickly as humanly possible.
I mean, David was saying 14 minutes there, but in fact, from the average wait times we've seen, there's severe pain, which is what he's talking about. He could have been anywhere up to 2 hours or even more. David, I hope you got the treatment that you needed and things were resolved for you. Let's take another call because we've got loads coming in. Heather's in Somerset. Heather, are you reluctant to call out an ambulance? Is it something you've had to do?
No, far from. I've had to call the ambulance several times, and it's with complete confidence. They've been absolutely marvellous. In fact, they've saved my life twice now.
Okay, that's.
If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Okay, what were your options? If the ambulance hadn't turned up, could you have got to hospital by yourself?
No, I live on my own, and there would be nobody to take me.
Okay, so if the ambulance doesn't respond in the sort of time, can we talk about waiting times? How long did you have to wait in those circumstances? I
didn't. They were very, very quick. I think that a lot of people ring up when there's not a real emergency, and the people at 110, they can thin out those which are really urgent and those that aren't. I mean, I had a ruptured aorta. Oh. And I mean, you bleed to death on that. I've been told you've got 5 minutes. So the paramedics, ambulance, everything was here. You didn't have hardly any time, and they were in the door, and they were so good. And the second time, I didn't realise I was in such a bad condition as I was. And when they'd finished, I got put on morphine, and I said thank you to the one paramedic, and she said to me, "Don't thank me. It was my mate who saved your life." So that's how I know that I had another big problem there, and it was a heart attack I had.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's not in any doubt at all here is the incredible work that paramedics and ambulance workers do. And it sounds like, Heather, in that instance, you made exactly the right decision. But was there anything in the back of your mind saying, I'm not sure I need this. Maybe this is an ambulance somebody else would need more. Or did you know straight away?
Well, on the second call, I was told I should have rung the ambulance earlier, and that's why I went on and had a heart attack. So they've always said, we're here to help you, and they did, and they give you all the reassurance and care you could possibly need. I can't thank them enough. They do a fantastic job, and people are quick to criticise, but they're very slow to say thank you at the end of it.
Yeah, we're definitely not criticising the work that they do. We're just looking at the way that the system's working at the moment and why so many people are taking it into their own hands. Thanks for your call, Heather. Let's have another one. Jamie is also in Somerset. Jamie, is that the experience that you've had, or would you be reluctant? Would you get in the car yourself?
Well, I haven't had to call an ambulance myself or for anyone I know, but I wouldn't. If this is the thing, I agree with the male panel, the male guy on the panel actually. That, some people are literally calling them, thinking it's an emergency, calling the ambulance, they come out, and it turns out it's not even, they didn't even need the ambulance out. So in my opinion, some people are wasting time. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily get in the car because I don't drive anyway, but I have people around me because I live in a shared a supported living home, so I have people around me that if I needed to, and it was a very worst case scenario, because I had a stubbed toe once, and well, not stubbed toe, but I dropped something quite heavy on it, and they just got me in the car and we drove there. And then when we got there, a lady was moaning, when we got out the lift, was moaning that, oh, you could have walked downstairs. Well, I couldn't because of the toe. But you know, I wouldn't.
We're not doctors,
some people
Jamie.
do waste their time.
Yeah, we're not doctors, are we?
They get there and it's not. It's ridiculous.
Jamie, we're not doctors. So I could experience indigestion and I could be absolutely convinced that I'm having a heart attack. And I don't know until I come into contact with a medical professional that I'm going to be fine, and what I actually need is Gaviscon, right? The reality is we need to get that professional to go, you're going to be fine, go and sit down, and everything's going to be all right. Only the ambulance can do that.
Or phone 111. That's what you should be doing. Phone 111 and explain to somebody on the phone call exactly how you're feeling, and they will triage you over the telephone. A, it will reassure you, and B, they will tell you the next thing that they want you to do. That is, of course, if you're capable of doing that.
Yeah. Matt, I think in this country now we have an unrealistic expectation of what our hospitals and our ambulances should be doing.
Yeah.
Severe pain for you may not be the same as severe pain for me. I can break my leg and sit in A&E with some painkillers for 5 hours and then be seen. That's not the same as someone who's going in saying, I've got a heart attack, I've had a heart attack, I need to be seen immediately. It's completely different. But to have an ambulance coming at you within 8 minutes, that's really good.
Yeah.
That is really good. If you're severe, 8 minutes, that's fantastic.
Not if you needed them 4 minutes ago, it's not. And that's why we've got those targets.
You're unrealistic.
No, listen, I'm believing in better, JJ. That's what it is. Thanks for your call, Jamie. I hope that stub toe is very painful. I hope it's all right now. And other forms of indigestion relief are available. We should stress that the NHS guidance is to call 999 in a life-threatening emergency, including unconsciousness, severe loss of blood, stroke or heart attack. That's it. We're going to draw a line under that, but don't go anywhere.